So Lake Mead just did something it has not done since before Hoover Dam even finished filling it up for the first time. And if you have been following this channel for a while, you already know I have been getting message after message asking me to break this down. So today I'm going to uncover the new record low at Lake Mead and what the federal government just proposed about water cuts across 3 states so that you understand exactly what it means if you own a home here or you are thinking about buying one. Then I'm going to give you a real market snapshot straight from this week's numbers and close things with a couple of brand new openings that just hit the news.
I'm Chruszhet Hydron. I've lived in Las Vegas for over 40 years. Welcome to my channel, where local insight meets real guidance.
Okay, so really quick, if you are new here, welcome. And if you are someone who keeps coming back every single week, thank you, genuinely. If today's video helps you out, please do me a favor and subscribe. It helps this channel keep doing the deep dives instead of the surface level stuff. All right, well, let's get into it. On August 6th and 7th, Lake Mead dropped to about 1,040.5 feet above sea level. Now, that number by itself does not mean much unless you have context. So let me give you that context. The previous record low was 1,040.58 feet, set back in July of 2022. So this is not just a low number, this is the lowest number ever recorded at this reservoir. Lake Mead is now sitting at roughly 27% capacity. Here is the part that actually stopped me when I read it. Lake Mead has not been this low since it was first filled after Hoover Dam was completed in the 1930s. We are talking about a reservoir that took years to fill in the first place, and right now it is sitting at a level that echoes that original fill-up period, except this time it is emptying instead of filling. I want to be clear about something before we go further. This is not a scare tactic video. I am not here to tell you that Las Vegas is drying up and you should cancel your move. I'm here to give you the actual facts because you deserve to walk into a decision like relocating with your eyes open, not with either panic or blind optimism. So let's talk about why this is happening. There are really 2 forces stacking up on top of each other here, and understanding both of them helps you understand why this problem is not going away quickly. The first is snowpack. The Colorado River, which feeds both Lake Powell and Lake Mead, is fed primarily by snowmelt out of the Rocky Mountains. Last winter produced one of the lowest runoff years on record across the entire Colorado River basin. Less snow in the mountains means less water just running into the river come spring, which means less water flowing downstream into these reservoirs. So the second force is a decision, not a weather pattern. So federal officials are essentially protecting Lake Powell's ability to generate power, and the trade-off is that Lake Mead gets less water flowing down into it. And layered underneath both of those is a 20-plus year mega drought the entire Southwest has been dealing with. We've got rising temperatures, growing demand across 7 states, and a river system that was allocated on paper back in 1922 using data from a period that turned out to be one of the wettest stretches in the river's recorded history. In other words, the original math this whole system was built on assumed more water than the river has actually been producing for the last 2 decades. Here is a number that I think you actually need to know, more than the record low itself. If Lake Mead drops below 1,035 feet, Hoover Dam's hydropower capacity is expected to drop by about 70%. Let that sink in for a second. Hoover Dam does not just hold back water. It generates electricity that gets distributed across Nevada, Arizona, and California. A 70% drop in generating capacity is not a minor inconvenience. That is a real hit to the regional power grid, and utilities that rely on that cheap hydropower are already warning customers about rate increases. And then there's a term you have probably seen thrown around in headlines, dead pool. If Lake Mead ever fell all the way to 900 feet, the lake would reach dead pool status, meaning water can no longer physically flow downstream through the dam at all. Not to Southern California, not to Arizona, and not to Mexico. We are not there. We are not close to there. But I want you to understand why every 5-foot drop makes news, because these are the thresholds people are watching. So, with all of that as the backdrop, the federal government had to act. At the end of July, the Bureau of Reclamation released a final environmental review laying out a new operating framework for the Colorado River that would run through 2036, replacing the old set of guidelines that had governed the river since 2007 and had officially expired. I want to be precise here because this part is important and I do not want to overstate it. This is a final environmental impact statement, not a final signed operating decision. The actual detailed guidelines guidelines for exactly how much gets cut in 2027 and 2028 are still being worked out, and Arizona's water officials have already called parts of the federal framework unacceptable. Nevada's governor and the state's water negotiators have also raised concerns about how the framework interprets Nevada's water rights. So think of this as the direction things are heading, with real numbers attached, but not every detail is locked into law yet. Even with that caveat, the headline number is real and it is significant. Arizona, California, and Nevada, the three lower basin states, are looking at combined cuts of up to 3 million acre-feet a year under this framework, with an initial 1.25 million acre-feet split between the three states starting in 2027 and 2028. Now here is where I want to slow down, because the way these cuts are distributed is not random, and understanding the why makes the whole story make a lot more sense. Arizona is absorbing the largest cut. That's 760,000 acre-feet per year. Arizona holds the most junior water rights among the three states, which under this system means it is first in line to lose water whenever supply tightens. That is going to hit central Arizona agriculture hard, and it is already creating real friction between Arizona and the federal government. California is cutting 440,000 acre-feet per year. California actually holds senior water rights, which shields a lot of its massive agricultural districts from the deepest cuts. But cities across Southern California are still bracing for something like a 10% reduction in supply. And then there is Nevada. We are cutting 50,000 acre-feet a year. On paper, that looks tiny next to Arizona's 760,000 and California's 440,000, but raw numbers without context can be misleading, so let me give you the real picture. Nevada's entire annual allocation from the Colorado River is only 300,000 acre-feet. That is the smallest allocation of any lower basin state by a wide margin. So a 50,000 acre-foot cut is not a rounding error for us. It actually represents about 1/6 of everything we are legally allowed to draw from the river in a given year, temporarily bringing our allocation down to around 250,000 acre-feet. Okay, so here is the part of this story that I think should actually give you some confidence if you are considering a move here. Even with that allocation cut, Southern Nevada is not in crisis mode because of how we use the water here in the first place. In 2024, the most recent full year on record, Southern Nevada used about 212,000 acre-feet. That's well under our full 300,000 acre-foot allocation, even before this cut takes effect. Why? Because we recycle almost everything that goes down a drain indoors. Nearly all of our indoor water use gets treated, sent right back into Lake Mead, and we get credit for that returned water against our allocation. This is the single most important distinction in this entire story, and it is the one thing I really want you to walk away understanding. The indoor water in Southern Nevada comes back. Outdoor water does not. When you water grass, when water evaporates off a pool, when it's soaking into the landscaping, that water is gone. It does not return to the system. That is exactly why every single conservation policy you're about to hear about targets outdoor water use and landscaping, not what happens inside your home. So let's talk about what this actually means if you own property here, starting with the biggest one, the grass ban. Assembly Bill 356 passed back in 2021. It says that starting January 1st, 2027, it will be illegal to irrigate what is called non-functional turf using Colorado River water delivered by the Southern Nevada Water Authority. Non-functional grass means that it is purely decorative and not actually used by people. Think street medians, business park landscaping, HOA common areas that nobody really walks on. This applies to properties that are not zoned exclusively single family. So businesses, HOAs, and multifamily developments. If you own a single family home, I want to be really clear, your home is currently exempt from this. This law is targeted at decorative grass nobody is actually using, not your kid's backyard play area. All right, now if you do want to get ahead of this and convert some of your property's landscaping voluntarily, or you manage an HOA that needs to comply, there is real money on the table to help. And the rebate structure actually depends on where your water comes from. Every single family homeowner in the valley qualifies for the SNWA's base rebate of $5 per square foot for the first 10,000 square feet converted and $2.50 per square foot after that. On top of that base rebate, if you're a Las Vegas Valley Water District customer, you get an additional $2 per square foot, bringing your total up to $7 per square foot. If you're a City of Henderson water customer instead, you don't get that that per square foot add-on, but you do get a flat $575 bonus, plus $50 for every new tree you plant. Either way, apply through SNWA first. That's the required starting point for both add-on programs. One more detail that matters if you're doing this yourself. So whatever you convert has to hit at least 50% living plant coverage at maturity using SNWA's approved desert plant list, and it needs drip irrigation, not just rock. This isn't just gravel and done. Here is something I want to flag for you though, because it is a mistake I have seen play out in real neighborhoods. Landscapers across the valley are reporting that mature shade trees are dying after homeowners rip out their grass and the sprinkler zones that were feeding those trees without installing a separate drip line to keep the trees alive. So if you are converting your yard, do not just shut off the power to the whole zone. Protect your trees with their own dedicated irrigation, or you're going to lose decades of shade along with the grass. And shade trees are not cheap or fast to replace out here. For new construction and remodels here in Southern Nevada, bathroom faucets are now capped at 1.2 gallons per minute, tied to the WaterSense standard. That's well below the federal baseline of 2.2 gallons per minute. So if you're building new or remodeling, your fixtures are going to be noticeably more efficient than what's in a lot of these older homes. So as for outdoor landscaping standards on new builds, that 50% figure I mentioned a minute ago for rebate conversions applies here too. New landscaping installed under these water efficiency standards needs at least half living plant coverage at maturity. There isn't a single countrywide ordinance with one flat effective date attached to all of this. It's really a mix of state law under AB 356 for turf removal and health district and WaterSense driven fixture standards that have been phasing in over recent code cycles. If you're a buyer on new construction, the honest answer is that efficiency standards are tighter than they were a few years ago across both fixtures and landscaping, rather than one single ordinance with one single date. Here is a tension in all of this that I do not think it's talked about enough. And I want you to understand it because it is going to shape how new communities get designed here for years. At the same time, the state is pushing to reduce grass and outdoor water use. Nevada also passed Assembly Bill 96, which took effect July 1st, 2026, and requires Clark County and Washoe County to build heat mitigation strategies into their master plans. Things like shade structures, tree canopy, cooling centers, and public drinking water access. This came after a brutal stretch of heat-related deaths, 513 in Clark County in 2024 alone, according to the Southern Nevada Health District. So think about what local planners are actually being asked to do right now. Reduce grass and greenery in a lot of places to save water, while simultaneously increasing shade and tree canopy to fight heat-related deaths. Those two mandates are pulling in different directions, and how the Valley threads that needle is genuinely one of the most interesting planning stories happening in Southern Nevada right now. I do not want to leave you thinking the only strategy here is cutting usage, because there is a real supply side solution in motion too. And it is honestly one of the more helpful developments in this whole story. On June 3rd, water agencies from Nevada, Arizona, and California, along with the Bureau of Reclamation, signed a memorandum of understanding at the Carlsbad desalination plant near San Diego to explore an interstate water exchange program. The idea is that in years San Diego has a surplus, some of California's Colorado River allocation could be transferred to Nevada and Arizona on paper, essentially freeing up more river water for us without a single new pipe being built to the desert. It will not solve anything overnight. This is still just a framework for future negotiation, not a signed water delivery deal, but it is the first agreement of its kind between these states, and it is a sign the conversation is shifting from purely cutting demand toward actually growing the usable supply. Okay, so let's shift gears, because I know a lot of you are here for the market update too, and I do not want to bury that. Las Vegas realtors released their official July numbers on August 6th. The median price for an existing single-family home came in at $480,000. That is down about 1% from a year ago, and about 2% off the record high that was set back in May and June of this year. Sales actually ticked up slightly compared to last July, so demand has not evaporated. The market is just recalibrating. Now, here is a piece that is even more current. As of this week, mortgage rates are sitting right around 6.58%, and the month-to-date median price has pulled back further down to $459,000. That is a meaningful move in a single week, and it tells you rates are still doing a lot of the work in shaping buyer behavior right now. Here's what I want you to actually take away from these numbers, especially if you are a move-up buyer. This is not a crash. This is a market rebalancing in real time. Elevated rates are keeping monthly payment front and center for buyers. Sellers are having to be sharper on pricing and presentation than they were 2 years ago, and rising inventory is giving buyers room to actually negotiate instead of getting steamrolled in a bidding war like we saw during the peak years. If you are sitting on the sidelines waiting for the perfect moment, I will tell you honestly, this is one of the more reasonable windows we have seen in a while. You have leverage right now that simply did not exist 2 years ago, and that is worth something. Now look, water and mortgage rates are the serious stories this week, but the city does not slow down for anything, and there are 2 pieces of news that dropped in just the last few days that I want to make sure you know about. First, over at the Flamingo, tickets just went on sale for a brand new immersive experience called Iron Mike Legacy, built around Mike Tyson's life and career. We are talking 7 themed rooms, augmented reality, holograms, the whole production. It is officially licensed, which is a big deal for something like this, and it is being billed as the first attraction of its kind anywhere. Tyson actually lives right here in Henderson now, so there is a genuine local tie to this one. It opens November 18th. Second, up in North Las Vegas, Agora Realty just finished construction on Hilo Park South. This is a retail center anchoring that 73-acre Hilo Park project, which sits on the old Texas Station and Fiesta Casino sites. We are talking 90,000 square feet, already 95% leased, with tenants like Cardenas Markets, Ross, Starbucks, In-N-Out, and Chipotle. That whole stretch of North Las Vegas has been overlooked for a long time, and this is a real sign it is finally getting its moment. So between the water headlines, the market numbers, and stories like these, you can see the whole picture. Vegas is dealing with real legitimate challenges, and it is still expanding at the same time. That push and pull is exactly why I make this channel, so you get the full picture and not just whichever headline is loudest that week. So here is where that leaves you. Lake Mead is sitting at a level none of us has seen in our lifetimes. The federal government has put real proposed cuts on the table for the years ahead, even while some of the fine print is still being negotiated between the states and Southern Nevada is responding with real policy. Some of it is uncomfortable, some of it is genuinely smart. At the same time, the housing market here is rebalancing in buyers' favor, and this city keeps building and keeps opening new doors even under real pressure. And if you want even more of what is shaping this valley right now, go back and watch the video I put out last month, The Future of Las Vegas Just Changed, where I walk through the new laws and the rules that are already shaping how we live and buy here. Between that video and this one, you will have a really clear picture of where Henderson and Las Vegas are headed. If you are thinking of making a move to Henderson or Las Vegas, or if you already live here and just want someone who is going to give you the real picture instead of only showing you a pretty kitchen, that is what I'm here for every week. Reach out and I will walk you through exactly what all this means for your specific situation. If this was useful, please hit subscribe so you do not miss next week, and I will see you on the next video. Bye for now.